All right, so this is 9-2 day 3. We're going to be graphing some polar equations. Here we have 5 cosine of theta. Now, with just 5 cosine of theta, when the coefficient is 1 and nothing's being added or subtracted, these are circles. Now, this circle has a diameter of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So over 2.5, up 2.5. And then over 2.5, down 2.5. That's down there. And then here is, oh boy. Here is the circle right there. With 3 minus 5 cosine of theta, we're going to double the coefficient. This is going to be an inner loop because 3 minus 5 is negative. We're going to get a negative value here. So we're going to double the coefficient, count by pi over 2's, and we have to go from 0 to 2 pi. So 0, 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves. When we plug 0 in, cosine of 0 is 1, so 3 minus 5 is negative 2. Pi over 2 is 0, so we get 3. Pi is negative 1. That's going to be 3 plus 5, that's 8. 3 pi over 2 is 0, so that's 3. And then cosine of 2 pi is 1, so we get that negative 2. Let's plot the points. We get 0, negative 2. That's back there. Pi over 2 is 1, 2, 3. Pi is 8. That's all the way over here. 3 pi over 2 is 3. So 1, 2, 3 down there. And then 2 pi is back to negative 2. So we're around there. It'll cut through the pole. Inner loop. Cut through the pole again. Go a little wider so we can loop around like that. Here, let me give you a shot of the completed graph there, roughly. All right. 5 minus 3 cosine. Now, when we take 5 minus 3, everything's going to have all the r's are going to be positive. All r's are positive. But 5 is not 6 or more. It's not double or more of 3, which means this is going to be a dimpled limacon. So we still go from 0 to 2 pi, double the coefficient, count by pi over 2's. 0 is 1, so that's 2. Pi over 2 is 0, so that's 5. Pi is negative 1, so there's where we get the 8. 3 pi over 2 is 0, so that's 5. And then 2 pi is 1, so we get 5 minus 3 is 2. So 0 is 2. Pi over 2 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pi is 8. That's all the way out here. 3 pi over 2 is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then back to 2. So we're going to loop out here. Going to dimple. And back to the beginning. Now on this one, 7 is 6 or more. It's double this number, which means we're going to have a convex limacon. All right, cosine of 0, still go from 0 to 2 pi, counting by pi over 2's. So 0 cosine of 0 is 1, so we get 4. 7 minus 3. Pi over 2 is 0, so we get 7. Pi is negative 1. That'll become plus 3. That's 10. So we'll have to go by 2's. 3 pi over 2 is 0, so that's 7. And then 2 pi is 1, so we end up with 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pi over 2 is, oh, no, we need to go by 2's because we can't fit 10 on this. So I'll label that as a 2. 0, 2, 4. Pi over 2 is 2, 4, 6, 7. And then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 over here at pi. 3 pi over 2 is 7. 2, 4, 6, 7. And then we're back to the beginning. So we're going to loop out here. This is convex, no dimple. Very close to being a circle. Here we're going to have a cardioid because 3 minus 3 is 0. So we go from 0 to 2 pi, count by pi over 2's. And if we plug 0 in, cosine of 0 is 1, so you get the 0 right away. Cosine of pi over 2 is 0, so we get 3. Pi is negative 1, so that becomes 6 because you're going to take negative 1 times negative 3. And then 2 pi is back to that 0. So we're at the pole right away at 0. Pi over 2 is 3. 1, 2, 3. Pi is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 pi over 2 is 1, 2, 3. And 2 pi is back to 0. So we loop around is a cardioid, so it's going to bounce off the pole and loop around like that. The last one we're going to review today is a pedal, or a rose. This is a rose with odd coefficient. So if this is odd, we're going to graph from 0 to pi. We're going to count by pi over 6s, and we expect 3 petals. 3 petals. All right, 0 to pi by pi over 6s, theta and r. So 0, 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and 6/6. There we go. Now we only need a couple of these values, so let's plug 0 in. Cosine of 0 is 1, so that's 8. Pi over 6, now that becomes pi over 2. Cosine of pi over 2 is 0. Then it goes -8, 0, 8, 0, -8. So every other one is 0, and then we go positive, negative, positive, negative. So 0, 8, that's all the way out here. Pi over 6 is 0. So there's half a petal. Pi over 3 is back to -8. That's down here. Pi over 2 is 0, so we're back to 0 like that. 2 pi over 3 is 8. 2 pi over 3 is 8. 5 pi over 6 is 0. And then pi is -8. So pi back to -8. So we're back to the beginning. And then there's a 3-petal rose.